All right, everyone, buckle up, because we are diving deep today. We're tackling Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. You guys sent this one over, and it's a classic for a reason.
It really is.
It gets into, like, the nitty-gritty of how our brains make decisions, the good, the bad, and the just plain irrational.
And Kahneman really nails this idea that we don't just think one way, right? It's these two systems, system one and system two, kind of duking it out all the time.
Like having two brains with totally different personalities. So for those just tuning in, what do these systems actually do?
So imagine system one as this super speedy automatic pilot, like recognizes a face or, finishes a simple sentence without even thinking about it.
Right, it's effortless. But then system two, that's where things get interesting.
Yeah, that's your more analytical, thoughtful side. Like if you had to solve a tricky math problem, or maybe you're trying to parallel park in a tight spot. System two requires effort.
Yeah.
You got to focus.
Makes sense.
But if system one is so quick and easy, why do we even need system two? It just seems to slow us down.
Well, here's the thing. System one, as amazing as it is, can be prone to some, shall we say, glitches.
Glitches? Like what? Give me the juicy details.
Think of it this way. System one is great for efficiency, but it loves a good shortcut. And sometimes those shortcuts lead to what Kahneman calls cognitive biases. Basically, predictable ways our thinking goes off track.
Cognitive biases. Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. So it's like system one is running around with these mental shortcuts, and sometimes it trips. I'm guessing that's where those cognitive biases come in.
Exactly. And the podcast you shared, it gave some really clear examples. There was this one, the availability heuristic. Have you heard of that one?
It rings a bell. I'm blanking on it, though. Refresh my memory.
Yeah, so basically it's like the easier it is for us to remember something, the more it's available in our memory.
Oh, right.
The more likely we think it is to happen, even if it's not actually true statistically.
Okay, yeah. Like, everyone's scared of flying because plane crashes are all over the news, but driving a car is statistically way more dangerous, right?
Exactly. Vivid examples like that, they really stick with us. But it doesn't just apply to, risk. Think about how easily we form opinions based on just a few news stories or something we see on social media.
Oh, wow. It's like we're all biased and we don't even know it half the time. What other mental traps did this podcast talk about?
Well, there was this one, the anchoring effect. It's pretty sneaky.
The anchoring effect. Okay, that sounds intriguing. Lay it on me.
So it's like this. Our brains, they tend to fixate on the first piece of information we get about something. Like if you're buying a used car, and the seller throws out a really high price.
That first number is going to stick in your head, right?
Yeah.
Even if you know it's way too expensive.
Yeah. That initial number, it becomes the anchor. And all of a sudden, even if you haggled them down, you might end up paying more than you should have because your perception of what's reasonable got all wonky.
Okay, that is sneaky. It makes total sense, though. So we've got the availability thing, the anchor thing. There was one more bias, right? Something about loss.
Loss aversion. This one is huge.
Yeah.
And it explains so much about why we make kind of irrational decisions sometimes.
Okay, break it down for me.
So picture this. You have a chance to win $100, right? But there's a 50% chance you might lose $50.
Risky. Would you take that gamble?
Most people wouldn't, even though statistically the potential gain is bigger than the potential loss.
Really? Why is that?
Loss aversion. We're hardwired to feel the pain of a loss way more strongly than the happiness of an equal gain. So we play it safe, even if it means missing out on something potentially awesome.
Wow. I never thought of it like that, but it's so true. Okay, so we've got all these biases messing with us. How do we even begin to make good decisions with all this going on in our heads?
Well, that's where Kahneman's big idea prospect theory comes in. It's like the next level of understanding how we deal with risk and decision-making.
Prospect theory, huh? Sounds kind of intimidating, but also super insightful. Like we're about to crack the code on how our brains really work.
Yeah, it's kind of a game changer. Basically, it shows that we don't always make decisions based on pure logic, like a computer would.
No, definitely not. Our emotions get in the way, right?
All the time. Prospect theory, it says that we feel the pain of a loss way more intensely than the joy of a gain of the same amount.
So that totally explains why most people would choose a guaranteed $50 over a 50-50 shot at $100, even if the odds say they could win bigger.
Exactly. We're wired to avoid those potential losses, even if it means missing out on something even better. It's all about how we frame those risks and rewards in our minds.
That makes a lot of sense. And how does this planning fallacy thing fit into all of this? The whole idea that we're terrible at estimating how long things will actually take.
Oh yeah, the planning fallacy. It's a classic. And it's totally connected to this idea of distorted thinking when it comes to risk and reward. We tend to be overly optimistic, right? Like, oh yeah, this project will only take me a week, no problem.
Famous last words. I'm definitely guilty of this. Always underestimating how much time I actually need.
It's a very human thing. We underestimate potential problems, unexpected delays, all those things that can throw a wrench in our plans.
It's like we forget that life happens. So knowing all of this, knowing how easily our brains can trick us, what can we do about it? How can we actually start making better decisions?
Well, the first step is awareness, right? Now that you know about these biases, like loss aversion, the planning fallacy, the anchoring effect, you can start to spot them in your own thinking.
So it's not about like getting rid of these biases completely because they're just part of how our brains are wired.
Exactly. It's more about recognizing when they might be influencing our judgment and then, maybe taking a step back and reassessing.
Yeah.
Like if you're about to make a big purchase, are you getting caught up in the excitement of it all?
Or if I'm about to commit to a tight deadline, maybe I should build in some extra time just in case things don't go exactly according to plan.
Exactly. Think it through a little more, maybe even get a second opinion.
So it's all about finding that balance, right? Trusting your gut, but also, giving your logical brain a chance to weigh in.
Perfectly said. That's really the key takeaway here. We've got these two systems working together, and the more we understand how they operate, the better decisions we can make in all areas of life.
This has been amazing. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive into the world of thinking fast and slow. I feel like I understand my brain and all its quirks a little better now.
Anytime. It's fascinating stuff, and it really makes you think twice about how you think.
It really does. All right, everyone, that's a wrap on this episode. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the minds of brilliant thinkers. Until then, keep those brains engaged and keep those questions coming.